Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, Jim Gray and Alex Hartman are with us. They're talking about this pretty exciting system of plugging things together that normally don't want to get plugged together, remote controlling things that have been difficult to remote control, and controlling them all in a single place. I like this idea. It's called Babelfish, and it's from Optimized Media Group. It's coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. Delighted to be here, and delighted to be where I am. I know, I'm a little bit lucky. I'm here in Hawaii. I'm on the island of Maui. Where town am I in? I think I'm in Wailuku or Walaheawa or something. Anyway, I'm on Lono Avenue in a 4-story building at the location of 6 radio stations. We're moving 6 stations over here, plus a couple of translators and some HD channels. Altogether, 8 programs coming out of this place. It's Akamai Broadcasting. We'll have some details on that. Next week, we'll be talking to my buddy engineer, Russell Lafferty, about some of the challenges that we have faced in putting these stations, moving them, and kind of putting some new things on the air. Okay, enough of that. We've got a really fascinating show today for you engineers who are really into things. A lot of the stuff goes, I don't know, not over my head, but I appreciate understanding it, and I'm going to try to get an understanding of it today. So last April, I was at the PREC, the Public Radio Engineering Conference. And when I was there, I met up with Jim Gray, who's been on the show before, and Alex Hartman, who's been on the show before, and they had something pretty cool to show off. They talked about it just a little bit on the show that we did from PREC at NAB, but today we get to explain it in a lot more detail. So enough about me, Kirk Harnack in Maui, and here I'll move out of the way. Let's see if the camera will adjust a little bit. There's those are the West Maui mountains behind me right there. West Maui, not the big mountain. The big mountain is called Haleakala. And we've got a couple transmitter sites there. So we'll be doing, hopefully we're doing next week's show from the top of Haleakala near the observatory, over 10,000 feet. Hope I'll be able to breathe. All right, let's introduce our guests. Alex Hartman is here. Alex, good to see you. How you doing?
Hey, Kirk. Good. I kind of wish I was in Maui when I was in Thailand last month, but, I'll take what I can get, and now I'm back in frozen tundra, Minnesota.
Well, I'm glad. Excuse me. I may cough a little bit because I got a little sick a couple days ago. I'm glad you're with us and to help explain this. And also, Jim Gray is here. Jim, welcome in. It's good to see you.
Thanks. Good to be back. And I will second Alex's opinion that, yes, it'd probably be better to be where you're at. We had a wind chill of 15 below yesterday here. So, yeah, it's chilly.
I thought it was a big deal. Yeah. We had some snow.
I went from 90 degrees in Thailand to that.
Oh man. Well, tell you what, give us a little intro here. Who wants to tell us, what is this topic we're talking about? I heard the word Babelfish, and if you Google Babelfish, you get a lot of, language translation information.
Right.
But maybe you're doing some language translation.
That's exactly it. The theory of the Babelfish is the Babelfish will speak all languages. And that's a lot of what we're going to show you and talk about today. Optimized Media Group, our company, at its core is an integrator. We have built studios and maintained studios from everything from small single commercial stations to large clusters to public radio networks and things like that. And we run into a lot of these problems as integrators, and we kind of sit back and wish, only if there's an easier way of doing this or a better way of doing this. And I think back to the days of when you would run into a problem and there's a solution for this problem, so let's make a solution for the problem. Mark Persons was famous for doing that. I think he was on your show not too long ago after he he was
Yeah.
introduced there. I will tell you, for all those of us in the Midwest that live around where he worked, his name and his gear is scattered throughout a lot of my client stations because it was stuff that, like, I really need to have this thing, so let's just make the thing. He builds the thing. We do very much the same thing but on a kind of a different level. The idea of the Babelfish was to try and demystify control and GPIO. At the end of the day, we need to be able to control things better because while audio over IP technologies from all of the different ecosystems has advanced, the GPIO function really hasn't followed along. Sometimes not at all, but even when it has, there's still some huge gaps, and the ability to control things remotely is big for us. So again, as an integrator, I go into a facility that might be 500, 600,000 miles away from me, and I build a thing. I build their facility, and they call me up 2 months later and say, "Hey, we need to change this thing." And if it's something that I have um, that I can just like log into the audio over IP software to do that, that's great. But a lot of them, there's a few things that we found that we can't, that actually requires us to send somebody back over there, rewire something, change some of the settings on things, and come back. And it's that problem, that we've joked about as engineers. Sometimes we get called to drive hundreds of miles to go reset a Wi-Fi router. Sometimes those repairs are almost as easy and as simple, and we can make that make it easier for the install, make it easier for the control in the moment, and more streamline on changing things down the road using this system that we call Babelfish. That is a translation system, so your systems can talk whatever GPIO language that your different pieces of gear, or your Axia system, or your Wheatstone system, or whatever, and then we will do the translations for you in a way that you can then go in after the fact and make the changes. And what you saw at PREC was actually our first step into this. We have a lot of clients that are smaller stations, a lot of rural stations, and a lot of public radio stations. Those of you that may know that Minnesota has one of the largest number of public radio stations per capita of anywhere, and we got a lot of public stations, a lot of LPFMs, things like that. A lot of those stations still rely on CD players, and or at least in part on CD players. And one of the things that we noticed was that in the last, I'll say, 5 to 10 years, professional CD players have kind of fallen off the market. They're really hard to find, and when you do find them, they're missing something. And one of the things that everybody wanted was the ability to auto fire your CD player. So I go over to my board here and I press on the CD player, and it fires it, uh, makes your show sound good and tight and things like that, instead of having to reach over and push the button on that.
Yeah.
So the problem was is that they just didn't exist. Having that auto fire ability of professional built CD players was either really difficult to get access to, or you're like taking them apart and soldering on the board, trying to put a contact closure across the play button on there, and half or a third of the time you're ruining something while you're doing it. It's just not necessary to be done that way anymore
Gone
when
are
we have
gone are
something
the
like
days
this.
of
So
discrete components. So those boards are monolithic. It's one chip that controls play, pause, stop, eject. So,
yeah,
you can no longer put a 10K resistor on a pin on the button, because it'll backfeed through the whole thing and start doing things you don't want it to do. So,
right,
if you've ripped
right,
open a modern CD player, it's a big empty chassis with a CD transport, and the front LCD is actually the brains. There's not a whole lot inside.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Um,
So so the,
yeah, go ahead, Jim. Keep on.
well, I was going to say that that's the concept of the first piece that we had out there, because that's what we had the most immediate need for. And we started off by building those things. That Alex has one up there. We started off building these things for our clients because it was making our lives easier. And we're now making them available to others to try and do that. And I'll show you some of the basics of what I'm talking about here. Um, just for some idea of the setup that I have, it's an Axia IQ console here, running a Core 32 mix engine, and then the CD player is a Tascam CD200 BT. I chose this unit as my preferred unit because it has everything I want except for, well, 1.5 things. I needed a tray load CD player. Slot loads we've found do not last long in a high use environment. I wanted something that was going to have, and this one does have a speed if digital out. It's not AES, but and I wanted it to have remote start. Okay, this one has everything but the remote start. So we need to adapt how this thing is going to take a command from here, and that is where our CD player interface comes into play. Pull this guy up here. So first of all, there we go. First of all, note that this is powered just by USB-C. And it's so you can power this with just about any phone charger. If it's especially if it has the PD power delivery system on there. It has a Wi-Fi chip built onto it because that's going to be how you configure this. You can also then log into it after the fact. Do you change the configurations and things like that as much as you see fit to? And then over here, we have 3 slots for you to be able to take contact closures. So this is a contact closure input. There is 3 individual slots on there, and then 4 pins to close on there. So you can have 3 commands on that.
It's 3 pins plus ground.
Yeah, 3 pins plus ground. So 3 commands per, and then 3 of these across there. And then here's where the magic happens is on these 2 guys. So I'm going to start with this one over here that I'm not using. So I can take a contact closure in here and spit out an RS-232 command here. So if you're CD players or whatever, I'm using CD players as an example. Understand that this is anything that will take any of these inputs. So I can take a contact closure here and spit out an RS-232 command here. So I press
or RS-485 or TTL.
Or 485, yeah. But I hit start on the board, and it spits the command out over here that goes to your piece of equipment to do what you asked it to do. This one, I think, is the most basic, but I think is the funnest version of this because not a lot of things have serial commands anymore. That's also going away. But what almost every one of these systems has is IR. I can hit a remote and start. Well, these are IR blasters. So I plug into there. Alex has the IR blaster itself there. You can see the round piece that's in front of his fingers there. That you just attach to the front face of the CD player. And then you plug the other end in, which is just like a little 1/8-inch jack or 3.5 millimeter. There we go. Plug that guy into here. And then it's going to send an IR signal back to it. And we can clone whatever device that you've got. So if we've got a pretty good list of commonly used devices. But if you have an odd device that you need to have that you need to operate in this way, all you have to do is send us the remote. We clone the remote, we add it to the firmware, and off you go. So now I have this CD player that does not have remote start capabilities. And of course, my speakers have shut off since then. So stand here just a second. There we go. So I'm going to queue up a song here. Track 12 of Bad Religion. And now when I hit on my IQ console, there she goes. And that fires it from here.
Perfect.
So now I have remote start abilities on here. But like I said, man, CD players was what my clients needed at first. It wasn't until after we started showing this thing around that I suddenly realized what this actually is. It's a translator. This is a translator. I'm taking contact closures and turning it into either IR or serial. So here's other examples that some of our clients and customers have been using this for. I had somebody come to me and say, hey, I've got this video camera system in my on-air studio, and I've got a remote that I've got preset scenes on it, and I hit scene 1 on the remote, and it snaps the cameras to a certain spot, and I hit number 2, and it snaps to the next one. With this, I clone that remote. And now when they hit on mic 2, the camera snaps to mic 2 because I'm using the IR function of that to re-steer your cameras. We had another client that talked to us at NAB that is running lighting systems, and he has some of his systems that normally would be like DMX. We can control with serial, and he needs to be able to control things like this in that way. So I take the contact closure and do whatever I wanted to with that. There is a school system in New York, a large school system in New York, that when the fire alarm goes off, they have to shut off all screen projectors and shut off the audio for the room so that you can see the alert from the fire alarm. So we took the contact closure from their fire alerting system, sent it to one of these guys, and then sent the command via a remote, because remember, these things are mounted up in the ceilings of these rooms, right? And we just put a IR blaster up in there, and now when the fire alarm goes off, hits the contact closure, spits out the IR blast that says do these commands, and there you go. So it's a CD player control is what it was designed for, but this is not necessarily how a lot of people are using it, quite honestly. We're still using it with our clients for CD players. That's pretty common, and they still do exist, people. But
it has another party trick too that Jim found out with that thing and his iPad.
So hold my beer and watch this, okay? So let's say that you are a station that is doing something that is commanded by, or that your content is on a remote device or a small personal device like an iPad. Hold on here. Go.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
We got a perfect opportunity to ask our viewers to hold on through this announcement, to wait for your party trick.
Do that.
So we're going to do that. Jim, this has been fascinating. Thank you for the explanation so far, and we've got a lot more to see.
This is the tip of the iceberg.
The tip of the iceberg. You're watching This Week in Radio Tech with Jim Gray and Alex Hartman. I'm Kirk Harnack, coming to you from Maui, the island of Maui in Hawaii, and we're building some radio stations here. This is fascinating what Jim and Alex have to talk about. We'll be back with more of it, including what Jim is setting up for us right now to see. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics and the fabulous, and I do mean fabulous, easy to use, almost automatic Camera One system.
Camera One from Broadcast Bionics. Designed to bring video to your audio content. Visualizing radio and podcasts for social media. Camera One can automatically create, capture and brand professionally switched video for live streaming or upload, making your production shareable. Control and configure using a web browser on any device. Camera One is available as a 4-camera or 8-camera system using the Blackmagic A10 Mini range, including the A10 Mini Extreme. You can use cameras to suit your studio and your budget. You'll need one camera for a studio wide shot and usually one camera per microphone. A standard multi-channel sound card or IP driver monitors audio from each studio microphone, and we work natively with Axia systems. Ideally, this will be a post-fader feed from each mic, although you can use pre-fade audio or a mic split if that's all you have available. These audio levels are used to intelligently switch the video feed when each contributor is talking. You can also group microphones together into one shot and use the audio from a mixer's aux bus. You can use Camera One's auto switch feature, or disable it and switch using the on-screen buttons or the buttons on the A10. Recordings can automatically start when you tell the system you're on the air. This on-air indication can be linked to your studio's red lights via IP or an Avantec Adam GPIO interface. You can quickly browse all the videos that have been automatically created during your broadcast, download them and post. Camera One is a user installable system. You'll need a good spec Windows 10 PC, i7 with plenty of storage and 16 gig of RAM. It's better if this machine isn't used for anything else. Remember, you can control the software in a web browser on another device on your network. Camera One, a thrifty way of creating scroll-stopping video from your show or podcast from Broadcast Bionics.
Really awesome stuff from Broadcast Bionics. You know, they specialize in broadcast-related systems that make your broadcast better or add social media hits to your whole outlook, your whole public image, and you don't really have to do much extra. You just do what you do now to make radio, and you get the benefits of what Broadcast Bionics brings to the table. Camera One is really cool, so check it out from your favorite broadcast equipment dealer. Find the dealer nearest you that carries Broadcast Bionics. Thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics, the whole team there for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Hey, I'm Kirk Harnack in Maui, Hawaii. We're moving some radio stations, installing all new gear. It's really going to be nice. We've got five stations. We just put the fifth one on. We were stunting for an hour, and the fifth one, a new country format, is now on the air from 33 Lono Avenue, a 4-story office building. That's where I am. Hey, but that's not
So I
about
have
me.
to
Our
ask
show
what the
is
stunt was.
Yeah.
What was the stunt?
Larry came up with it the last second. It was an hour and a half of funky cold Medina.
I respect that.
Yeah.
All right.
So
That's a stunt.
Hey,
I wanted
here
to
in
play,
Minneapolis, they stunted with REM's "End of the World as We Know It" for 3 days.
3 days, yes.
I wanted to stunt with something nobody ever heard before, and that's these new AI generated songs that you can find.
Oh, I love those.
And it's now a country station. It was rock, so it went from rock to country. But I wanted to play an AI song that is in my playlist from YouTube. It's called "Let's Stink Up the Room with Our Love." But
those are great. I have an entire playlist of those.
I know. Yeah.
My vote's with you, too.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. And there were a bunch of them we couldn't play, but hey, whatever. What's on YouTube when they have these funny songs that are not playable on the air? What's funny is the comments. Those are the best. The like "Let's Think Up the Room with Our Love." You've got people go, "My mom and dad used to play this on our road trips." When I was a kid.
The comments end up being songs in themselves.
They could be. You should use them for prompts for songs.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right, Jim, you were setting up a demo for us.
Yeah.
Alex will narrate or give color, but let's see what you got, Jim. Let's see.
I can give you a play-by-play on what's going on here. So here we have the iPad that I've got a song queued up on, and I want to play this through my on-air system, but I want to be able to control it from the board. So I want to play here, but not have to reach over and hit play on this device while I'm talking on air. So now all I have to do is reach over here and hit play, and let's see if I can get that in frame for you. There you go. All right. So now when I hit play here, fires the iPad.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So let's think about what I just did there. All right.
Yeah.
This is translation, right? That's Babelfish. It's translation. I took a contact closure, turned it into IR, which then turned it into Bluetooth, which gave the command to this iPad to play. It's translation.
Because the CD player has a Bluetooth receiver in it that's paired to this iPad. So the CD player is the intermediary on this one.
Yeah. But it's the whole concept here is, can we translate one form of command into another form of command that this device will understand and pass that on to another one, and all of that ends up in this added ability to do things like this. And again, these are an example, but anything that speaks those languages, we could apply this type of technology to. So that was phase one. That's where we started.
Yeah, let's move into the evolution thereof. So
right,
I looked at that and said, well, now we can control CD players. What about the rest of the network? What else can we talk to? What are the most annoying things to deal with in any broadcast plant, Kirk, when it comes to GPIO?
Well, it used to be turntables and CD players, so you probably have those covered.
That's good. That's two things. But what is the number one nightmare, modern day GPIO headache?
Oh.
Satellite receivers.
Well, yeah, not because it's difficult, but because there's often a lot of it, and
Correct.
It's a lot of it, and it
yeah,
changes.
yeah.
And it
Well,
changes. So
can
when you
change.
change from
That's
XDS to the I pumps and back to XDS, when the providers change or ESPN changes something, or you take a new show and you got to
or
rip apart that little connector and put all the wires
Yeah,
back in. It
yeah,
takes you 3 weeks to make sure that the legal ID or the TOH or the B liner fires correctly, because you always like, did I get that
yeah,
one right? I don't remember. Is their documentation correct? Those are the hard things. So I
and it's a
said
dynamic thing. This isn't like this isn't like something that you could wire up one time and say that I'm done, because you add shows, you move shows, you add features, they move
you
pin
format
number
flip just like
for
Kirk just
whatever
did.
function. Right.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So how much time do you
So
spend format flipping on 3 satellite receivers?
yeah. So
Yeah,
here
yeah.
is the answer that we came up with, and understand that this is a very ugly wiring job to show you one of almost everything. Okay. But
Hmm.
again, the concept here is, can I make everything easy? And remember that this is coming from the perspective of an installer and an integrator. So I want to be able to control GPIO on everything inside my facility in one spot. I want to have full control over everything in one spot, and
Okay.
remote controllability and remote changeability. So it starts by adding the brain. This is our Model 42 brain.
Hmm.
This one
Much like
brain
the CD
device
player
here,
interface.
yep, yeah, it's got the Wi-Fi that you're going to use mostly just for its initial configuration, and then it will plug into um, uh, your office network thereafter, so you can
Okay.
have access to it from there.
Okay.
There are
Or your
3
AOIP
buses that
network, your
are across
choice.
here, yeah, or your AOIP network, yeah. But 3 buses that come across here. Each one of these buses will control 8 devices that I'm about to show you. So each one of these Model 42s would control 24 devices.
Oh wow.
And they are in a chain. So you will go one and just keep chaining them together as you go there. So let's start with that satellite problem that Alex just talked about. We had a client that it was a 6-station cluster that did a physical move inside of their own facility, and we had to rewire all of their satellite receivers. And I'm trying to remember, Alex, how many did he have?
7.
Gary, seven receivers.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So 7 receivers.
An
Each of those would
ESPN
have the two
affiliate with
ports.
everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Maximum.
took us days. Yeah, it took us days just to get the audio over IP, or no, excuse me, the GPIO for the satellite receivers figured out. We went in here with this system, and in about 3 hours redid the entire place, and now we have full control over it. But it
Oh
starts with
wow.
this
Well, and
guy right here.
here's the example of what happened here is that the Premier changed from XDS to the Wegners. Well,
Right.
the Wegners are pin compatible. They are not the same.
Hmm.
So, you sit there and you futz with the Winford engineering thing and make sure you got your wires in the right spots. But, the XDS had, trigger 1A, and then they have 1B. But on the iPump, it's 1A common. They're not the same. So, yes, screwed around for that for a long time. And that was the genesis of these little things. And I said, I can make this happen. These little things
Yes.
right here are exactly my answer to that.
Hmm.
So this is
So
what we call the
the
Sputnik,
DB37,
because it's for satellite receivers.
Ah, the Sputnik. Ah, I gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why
Uh,
it's got Sputnik
all
on
right.
the backside.
So does that just bring the closures out to RJs, or does it transform them in some way to something
it
Oh
serial?
no, no, no.
transforms.
Okay.
Yeah. So the
So it
entire
goes back to the
all
brain board.
37 pins are now accessible. You can now talk to it through the Model 42. So I now
Okay.
have access to all 37 pins on this guy remotely from here. All I have to do is plug this in. I don't wire anything. I plug this in, and now I go into the software interface on the Model 42, and I can see everything. I can control everything. I can move things around.
Hmm.
I plug this in one time, and I'm done. But it also had, now let's scale this. The example that we gave you, they had seven receivers between 2 and 4 of these per receiver. That's a lot of them. But all we had to do was just plug them in and walk away.
They daisy
So
chain.
there we are. Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay.
So on
Yep,
the
they daisy
Wegener
chain.
specifically, you have four GPIO ports on each receiver, and each one is dedicated to an audio card. So if you've got multiple stations running multiple programs off there, you can't share your GPIO with top of hour pin for program like Delilah mixed with the Cubs baseball game. You have to use independent closures. So each one of these creates an output. So these are all addressable. And in doing the addressing, these are all individualized and controllable in software. Both the XDS and the Wegener both also spit out serial data. Sometimes they do it on the IP port, but it's not correctly formatted. But the correct format, however, is on the serial port. Well, these little guys know how to talk serial, so we added the little 1/8-inch TRS jack right here. You plug it into the serial jack on your Wegener and plug it in here. Now that data that comes off that serial port is now on your network.
Oh wow.
So now I can do something
So
like
you want to add
spit it
the
into
now
my
playing for
RDS.
Delilah? Yep. Yep. You want your RDS to be able to show you're now playing from like Delilah or the score of the football game that you're pulling down from the satellite or any of those things. It's built onto this, and now it's all available there.
Wow.
Yeah, so the idea was to take all
there's
this
the
data
satellite.
and put it on the network.
Yeah. And something changes. I remote into it. I change the pin settings, and we're done. I don't have to rewire anything ever again. I'm done.
So far we've talked about getting out of the satellite receiver. I'm trying to keep you in time, Jim.
Yep. Go for
Which
it.
is weird for me to do to the managing partner, but hey, whatever. So we take stuff out of the satellite receiver, but we have to do something with it, right? We need to either tell us an automation system, trigger a light, trigger something else in a room, move audio, whatever we have to do. So I came up with an 8-port GPIO relay board. Talks the same language, again, powered by USB-C. Power delivery. This one I'm changing to a DC barrel jack because not a lot of people understand that there is different power delivery on USB-C.
Oh really?
So finding people to get the 12 volts out of a USB-C power brick, it's not the same as your cell phone brick. They're a little bit different. So I'm changing that to a DC barrel jack just to make it simple, so you don't screw that up. But same thing. So now I've got 8 relay outputs. Well, you plug that into like a broadcast tool switcher right there, and you can trigger your switcher. Or again, we have a network jack. Broadcast tools is very, very well documented. Every automation system supports it. So why not just talk to it that way on a network? So I just plug in here and you run a serial emulator on your automation system that looks to this IP address, and I spit out that string. You put into your automation system and you have a ACS 8.2. And here you go. I've just given you the pre-formatted string from your satellite receiver to trigger your liner A break.
Wow.
Without the need for all of that. Or, again, we can trigger on-air lights or recording lights. Or how about LED strips underneath your fancy new console furniture? Using this. This is all available, and they all follow each other internally to the brain. Okay, on this board, I can say pin 41 or pin 28 of my satellite receiver 1 is going, or I'm going to say actually the reverse. Sorry, relay 1 is going to follow pin 28 of my satellite receiver. So when satellite receiver pin 28 fires, this relay will also fire. So I can do that all internally without any external software. The network jack also lets you into, remember that protocol I was telling you about, Kirk, called MQTT?
Yes, I remember that.
This whole thing speaks MQTT. So if you can talk to that, which is very universal, very well documented, you can make it do anything. And all of that data is available through MQTT. So I can just send a command to MQTT or just a TCP string. Or if you are an AOIP house, emulate the string that the GPIO sends. Just push it out there using something like Node Red. So there's a lot of intermediary. This is where the Babelfish thing comes into play. We're using a lot of different translation systems to translate what seems like a simple, stupid function like turning on a light switch through button pushes, or automated button pushes, or commercial brake triggers, or underwriting, or door latch alarms. Physical security can also do this. They're just closures, right? Nothing more than a light switch, but you need to put it somewhere. So that's what all these little problem solvers do. So we have one for the satellite receiver. And what if you do have, you're not a big enough house you're starting your AOIP lifespan, getting into that world. You got a couple of Core 32 studios, smaller, mom and pop kind of place. You're very familiar with that kind of lifestyle.
Sure.
But you still need a copy of like iProfiler or something like that, right? And you need to skim.
Sure.
How are you going to turn on and off that skimmer? Well, I made one that plugs into an X node.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask about that next. Okay. Yeah.
So this one is pin compatible with an X node. And so I can trigger X nodes. So iProfiler GPIO or any of that function. Then I made one specifically for our friends in the South there with the Banjo. This is for WheatNet. So the WheatNet's a little bit more difficult because they can make anything an input or an output. So I had to opto isolate all of this. But again, same bus mechanism. I can go, in, out, I can daisy chain devices, but I can also have the two RJ45s on the back of any Wheatstone blade, plug them in here, talks the same. So any of that stuff. And again, it's all in the network.
And here's an example that we've seen out in the field. Let's say I've got a Wheatstone facility, but I want to be able to use a Telos phone system. And how am I going to interface those things? So here I have an example of the Banjo here that we plug directly into the blade, and then here is the GPIO that's going to control the Telos phone system. So now I'm translating pin for pin from one to another, so I can pass stuff back and forth. It's all translations.
On that short green cable, what is traversing? What protocol is traversing on that short green cable?
It is SPI. High-speed SPI bus serial. Yep, it's chip to chip. So you'll love this one, Kirk, and I'll get Suncast to zoom in there. This is my Axia adapter. We call it East Wind.
That is so.
So we thought that would be kind of fitting for the homage there to Frank. The Babelfish baton is our relay board, and this is output.
Baton, of course.
Notice whose name's on there.
Yeah, Leif Clayson. Yeah.
Yeah. So the genesis of this started a number of years ago. Leif Clayson's a good friend of mine. You guys may know him from the Omnia 9 fame. He called me up and said, "Hey, I want to control all of the lights in my new house, but the only way I know how to program that stuff is with a PC. He's a Windows guy, right?
Yeah.
Makes Windows apps, right? Or embedded systems like the Omnia 9. And I said, my friend, you need to learn what a microcontroller is. And so I sent him a little box full of these. And it's just a ESP8266 little dev board, nothing special. These are like $3 on Amazon. Okay. So I sent him like 5 or 6 of those and some resistors. And I said, here, you get to be my kid now. Here, learn what this does. And we created a monster because this is where his brain went.
Oh, and that is what?
So his microcontroller
that's
system.
42, that's the brain.
Yeah, this is the brain. He has gone into. I come up with these ideas of what I want to do, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I can do that, no problem." He has gotten so good with these little microcontrollers. He has thousands of these things controlling his everyday life. He doesn't even actually have a real light switch in the wall anymore. It's just one of these.
The little antenna that's on the little piece of wire there is that Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or something else?
Yep, this is Wi-Fi.
Yeah, Wi-Fi.
That's Wi-Fi.
So it's an ESP32 based system. So it's a microcontroller. that natively has Wi-Fi built into it. And that's why we put it on the Model 42. Is you have hardwired Ethernet. Everybody trusts this. This is always going to be reliable. But every
Right.
once in a while, you do need to get into it and configure it, or you have to dual home your networks, for instance. Say this side's on like an existing AOIP network, and this side can go to your office network to manage it. So you
Sure.
can see what's going on, or you can trigger other devices. So that's kind of the point of having it. Now I've got two network adapters, right? So now I have dual home network on essentially an well, it is not essentially, it is an ESP32. Mine I optioned with a little OLED LCD and a rotary encoder so I can set the IP address and see debug information.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, we got to
Uh,
take a quick break. We got to take a quick break again to hear from a really good sponsor. We're talking to Jim Gray and Alex Hartman about Babelfish. And when I saw this last April at PREC in Las Vegas, I knew they were coming up with modules to interface to different things and do different cool things. This is amazing what you guys have been coming up with. We got more from Alex and Jim in just a minute. This Week in Radio Tech, episode 725, is brought to you in part by Innovonics and a very useful tool. It's the Innovonics Model 677 Triple Tuner. Let's check it out.
The 677 Triple Tuner is a monitor receiver in a compact half-rack package. It has 3 built-in SDR-based frequency agile tuners, each one programmable for AM, FM, or weather band reception. Each receiver has a balanced monaural XLR output to provide audio to an EAS monitor or off-air monitor throughout the broadcast facility. It has self-logging alarms that constantly check for audio loss, low signal, RDS-PI mismatch, and EAS alert tones. Online alarm notifications alert personnel with email or SMS messages. The dynamic web interface provides control and monitoring remotely via any web-enabled device. In addition, the 677 has remote listening available via a web stream. It allows up to 10 simultaneous stream listeners, and SNMP is fully supported. Of course, the most important feature for any radio receiver is its reception quality. The 677 handles this like a pro by incorporating a modern SDR-based design for excellent signal-to-noise ratios and rejection even in the most challenging conditions. The 677 is simple to set up with front panel OLED menu and jog wheel, giving you access to 3 selectable tuners. In addition, a built-in web server provides expanded remote setup, operation control, and remote audio monitoring via internet stream. On the front of the 677, there's an LED bar meter to indicate audio output levels, a headphone jack, and LED alarm indicators for each receiver. There's a large OLED display and jog wheel with intuitive menus for easy setup of the 3 receivers and editing over all programming parameters.
And the Innovonics 677 is available from Broadcasters General Store, BGS. Their website, bgs.cc, bgs.cc, and you can call them at 352-622-7700. Great folks at Broadcasters General Store. They'll probably answer the phone right now, even though it's kind of late in the day on the East Coast. Love these folks at Broadcasters General Store. Been buying from them for, my goodness, 30 plus years. All right, it's This Week in Radio Tech. Jim Gray is with us, and so is Alex Hartman. Hey, Jim and Alex, these products, what brand name are they? I know they're called Babelfish, but is this part of Optimized Media or something else?
It is. Yeah, this is under the Optimized Media Group name, and yes, we have a logo all
OMG,
over
right
them.
there. Oh, good.
It's going to be under the OMG name. They are available through BGS, by the way. One of the things that you didn't ask yet, but I'm betting you're probably going to, is how much are these things going to cost? Again, we built these things for us, and we're willing to share this stuff out. And it's going to sound super cheap, but it's may not necessarily be. So the system always, okay, well, first of all, the CD player is a standalone unit. You can get that one standalone, period. That one unit will control 3 CD players. It's $279, and you get that through BGS. That one's a standalone. It's not really part of the Babelfish ecosystem because it doesn't have to talk to this at all. The other standalone piece that we have is this guy that may look very familiar to some of you. It's just simply a breakout that goes from the DB15 for Axia systems to an
Yeah.
RJ45 for in and out. Very
Okay.
common. These are also
But
available
there's no
through
translation on
BGS.
that. That's just breakout. Okay.
No, this is
Yep,
just a
that's
breakout,
passive
simple
device.
breakout. So this is not. It looks a lot like our Eastwind, but it is not. But these
Gotcha.
are also available from BGS. I will tell you, as an integrator, I go through cases and cases of these things, and we realized we can make them, so we did. So if you're starting off, you're going to start with the brain, and this is the most expensive piece of gear. This piece is $189. So one of these is $189, and then everything else that you see here. So the Sputnik, well, almost everything else. The Sputnik for satellite receivers, the Banjo for WheatNet integration, and the Eastwind for Axie integration. Those are all $80, $80, and you never have to wire anything again.
Nice.
And then the baton is slightly more expensive because these relays are pricier. This is $100. So it's each individual piece is relatively inexpensive. Keep in mind, though, like if you're like, this is great, I want to do this to all my satellite receivers. You have 4 satellite receivers with 4 GPIO ports each. That means that you would need 16 of these to make
Yeah.
that go.
Yeah.
So it scales. So I'll say kind of be careful in that. But in total, it's very inexpensive. I think each individual part is very inexpensive. With the
And the
CD
config file is
players
nothing more than a
interface,
text file.
yeah,
So
I'm sorry. The
the
you know,
configuration.
interface is
there
just a
is
simple text file.
it's a simple text file. There's no online, there's no portal, there's no subscriptions, there's nothing. It's all local, all on the device. We didn't want to play that game because we're integrators. We hate dealing with that, waiting for password resets and crap like that. I'm done with that in my time of life right now. What was my password? Where are my pants? Did I put in coffee? Yeah, I don't need that in my life anymore. So we just went with, no, this is just a basic, simple text file that everybody can understand. The instructions are in the text file of how to do it, and it's all on the device. So there's
All
no
built right
pretty
on there.
web portal, there's no flashiness, because you're going to stuff this behind your rack and log into it every time you change a program, but that's about it. That's the whole point of these, is they solve your problem quickly.
Right.
Wow.
And these are made for point of use. So, of course, these are all attached to the back of the devices, and then these are
Right.
attached to the there,
Yes,
and then you can
nodes.
centralize this, or however you feel so moved to, wherever you want to place them. We are honestly, when we use these as integrators, I leave them bare like this, because it's added cost. We are going to have an option for cases. So if you want a pretty case to put it in, cool. What we see most often happening is like with
The only
CD
one I
players,
can't put a case
it's
in,
attached on the inside there.
I can't put a case on Eastwind. And I had that conversation with Catfish, because when he designed the X nodes, when he worked for Tesla, the connectors are too close together to actually put a shell on them.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
So you can blame Catfish for why
So
your DB15s never have a shell.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not necessary. But if some people like cases, we'll give them a case. That's fine. But that's to your discretion. So that's the what they are. I see we've just got a couple minutes left, so I just want to talk a little bit about what's next. So the
Yeah.
2 things that I want to bring up, 3 things I want to bring up. One is you tell me what's next. I have learned more applications for these devices than I intended them for, because we built them for our clients and our use. But when you understand that it's a GPIO translator, you tell me what you're going to translate and how you want to use that, and then we will put those put that out there for you. So you tell me what's next. That's first of all. Second
Actually,
thing
no,
is
don't tell
that
him, tell me.
yeah, well, good point. Tell me and I'll tell Alex. So, but no, the second piece of that is we have the GPO in the baton. we also need to have a GPI, an input device of some sort. So so the reverse of the baton is coming along very shortly here. And then the third and final piece of this that kind of pulls everything together nicely is basically a simple serial server that can gather serial data and put it together and spit it out for things like, for example,
Actually,
we
you
talked
missed
about
one that I already designed.
Did I? What did I miss?
EAS.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Okay. So it'll pull the EAS data off of there. So like, let's say you have an EAS alert, and it pulls that serial data, sends that to your automation to switch and take this data. So when the tones go off, you get the EAS string going across your RDS. And that's
Yeah. That's
Because it's
cool.
only
yeah,
usually available on a serial port, not on an Ethernet jack. How do you get that into your
Right.
middleware
right.
without busting out the DB9s and putting another computer next to it? It's so annoying,
Ugh.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, these little boxes, these chips have serial ports. Let's just use those. So we're
Yeah.
doing that.
Oh.
So I can get the triggers. You can, I'm just reading the data. I will not control EAS because I don't want to get into, part 11. So I'm just reading what the EAS is doing and then translating that to the network for you to translate into whatever you need. So if you need the alert text, it's an Amber Alert, a thunderstorm warning, tsunami, volcano because you're in Hawaii, that's on you. Did the closure come? Now you've got affidavits, how do you log EAS when the EAS forgets to log itself sometimes? Or does anybody remember the login because we've gotten rid of all of our engineers? We can log that data too because we have the closure, and that's put on the network. Again, all these little simple automation things these problem solvers that all of us deal with on a regular basis is what this is all designed for. So EAS was a big thing, and we do moving into this networked world. Setting up Telnet SSH servers, cool on your switches and routers. Or web interfaces, or having that jump box that everybody has that everybody logs into remotely using whatever remote desktop and then getting into the system. I've decided that I needed one of those for just network devices, serial controlled devices. So I made a 4-port serial server. Anybody who's gone and looked at how much those things cost from like Digi or any of the other bigger serial device companies, we're not going to do that. I mean, you've seen our pricing for all this other stuff, so it's going to be right in line with that. Because there's no need for it to be fleeced like that. It's a serial server. You're taking the oldest form of communication and making it Ethernet.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
By
the
the way,
goal of the Babelfish ecosystem.
when you are taking these protocols, serial particularly, and turning it into Ethernet, doesn't that imply that I could use it over distance? Is there anything to prevent me from sending that across public internet at that point?
Other than your insatiable ability to be hacked without a VPN,
Yeah.
so definitely make sure that you have secure over the internet.
Right.
Make sure that you're playing safe. Absolutely, you can do this from a distance. The computer doesn't care where in the world you are. I did all this stuff in Thailand, 6,000 miles away from my house. Pretty easy. Computer doesn't care where I am.
Are there applications for these components at the transmitter site?
Yes, absolutely. GPO again, or GPI when that comes. Again, physical security, door switches, interlock control, things that your remote control can do. But let's be honest, remote controls and reliability have gone down in my experience. They're not great. But you need something to simply push a button, or hey, the HVAC guy's there to change the filters on your air conditioner or let them in. You get the door strike thing. Again, push a button from the studio. You can see them on the cameras. You've got all this physical security. There's temperature sensors and all this stuff. We can monitor temperature. Basic stuff. I mean, I do this all the time. I use very inexpensive stuff to replace these stupidly expensive for no good reason devices. And they all say, oh, because it's industrial. No, it's not. It's the same stuff that you buy for your house. You know, the difference between a house and industrial is the temperature range. That's it.
Right.
Same devices inside.
And once
Just
you get
they threw it in an oven and made
these
sure it went to
MQTT
60 C.
devices, once you get into these MQTT based things, it opens up the possibility of doing so many different things. So, for example, if you have a Stream Deck and you want to use that as a button push to fire a thing to control something in your network, to control your audio over IP, you can do that. Don't have a Stream Deck? You can build a little web page that has a button that you can click on. And I understand that this is not a replacement of things like Pathfinder, but it does take a lot of the functions that Pathfinder would give you for your station that might be a mid to small size station. And instead of paying 10 grand for Pathfinder, you're going to pay maybe $1,000 in parts and be able to do all of these other things, including some things that Pathfinder can't. So it's not a replacement for, but it's an emulator of a lot of those same functions. And once you get into this kind of ecosystem, and with this stuff that we're using is open source, we're not hiding anything here. You put the stuff on your network, and you want to put in Node-RED, Alex?
Yep, Node-RED's one of them.
Yeah. So, for example, Node-RED.
I'm going to put myself in the dark, and I'm going to show you what I use. So this is a fun little app. I can show you from my phone because it has a phone thing. It's called Home Assistant. You know what the difference between a home and a transmitter site is? A word. This is just automations, literal automations. So here's my office. We'll go to my office webpage. It's 85 in here right now because I have the door closed, which is dumb. But you can see I have my monitors and speakers on. But my ceiling lights are off. Should we turn my ceiling lights on now? Well, let's do that.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And off. And on. And desk backlight. How about my benchtop backlight behind me? You know, let's make that brighter. We can make that brighter.
And once you get into this level of ecosystem, the possibilities of what you want to do are pretty much endless on it. We're just providing the broadcast industry's entry point into all of this stuff.
Here's my greenhouse. I have the temperature, the humidity, the outside temp. Yes, it's cold here. And is my heater on? And when was my heater on? And what was the temperature history of that greenhouse?
Holy cow.
That looks a lot like a transmitter, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is free as in beer software. I just have to write the script of, it's basically if this, then that. And it's all local. This is cloud-based. Runs on a little server I have over in my rack.
Oh, my goodness.
And I don't pay a dime for
we've got to take our last quick break, and when we come back, we'll have time for a good tip from each of you, where people can find more information or whatever you want to give for a tip for this stuff. This is fascinating, and obviously you've opened the door to a new world of interconnectivity and connection and doing things easily. I love the satellite receivers ideas. Oh my goodness, I could use that. Our show this week in Radio Tech, we're talking to Jim Gray and Alex Hartman with Optimized Media Group, OMG, and they are introducing us to Babelfish and all the components that they've designed to go around this, different protocols being used to let you control things that may be hard to control and let you consolidate that control into convenient areas. This week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by Angry Audio. At Angry Audio, they are the makers of the Rave audio console. This is an analog console. It's it's intended, it's fully capable, but you might want to put this in a small studio, a podcast studio, a voiceover room. It could work as your on-air console too. The Rave console, I have seen and held these things. They are well built. They're heavy. They're hefty. They feel like a really professional radio console. And you know why? Because they're designed by a professional radio console designer. That's Mike Dosh. Mike has designed consoles for Pacific Recorders and Engineering, PR&E, also for Telos Alliance and Axia, and now this Rave console. It's an analog console. There's nothing digital in this console, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what it is. It's the highest quality analog inputs, outputs, componentry, mixing buses, all that stuff. It's very high quality, and it's beautiful to look at. It, of course, has microphone inputs, line level inputs, and then it has all of your Studio Hub connectors for the line level inputs and outputs. And of course, it has tally, contact closures. So it's a professional radio console. This is not like, not like something you'd buy at Guitar Center. If there's anything wrong with that. This is meant for broadcasters. AngryAudio.com is the website. Check it out. If you're a podcaster, you're going to love this thing too. The Rave Audio Console. This Week in Radio Tech is also brought to you by my friends at Max Connect Wireless. This is an older Max Connect unit. Oh, let's see. There we go. This is an older Max Connect unit right here. But this, works great. Gets us the data that we need when we need static IP address and prioritized 4G cellular data. We have used this very box to keep radio stations on the air, to put a station on the air when the fiber hadn't been run yet. We had a station in Memphis that Comcast went out for 4 days during pledge drive. This box right here kept them on the air with a micro MPX system for their STL, and it worked absolutely great. If you're doing remote broadcasts and you need reliable internet in the midst of 60,000 fans, well, you've got that. And Max Connect, this is what's on the screen right now. Max Connect has some new solutions that integrate different kinds of internet delivery, with LTE being part of that. And the best thing to do, well, you can go to their website at Max Connect. I know it's spelled funny because internet. Go to Max Connect and check out this diagram and the description of what they can do for you. But also, you can give them a call and talk to them about, hey, here's what I need to do. I have a transmitter site. I have a remote studio. I have whatever. And they will help you figure out the right solution. They also work with different carriers, as shown on your screen, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Thanks a lot, Max Connect. Josh Bone, what a brilliant guy and a brilliant company. Max Connect Wireless. Check it out. Appreciate their sponsorship too. All right, we've got just a few minutes left. Jim and Alex, we're going to see if you have some final parting words for us. Let's see, who's going to draw the short straw to go for? Well, I see it. Alex looks very ready. Go ahead, Jim. What were you going to say?
We'll go back to your go back to your sponsors real quick. We're completely compatible with Max Connect and the Rave console.
Okay. Well, there you go.
My words of advice here is, as you're building in anything new, think about doing something like this so that you don't have to do it twice. This is one of those things that you may already have everything you need built in, but think about the next time you need to make a change into something along these lines. And the last thing I'll tell you is, again, you tell me what you need this to be. We have found that with Alex and Leif Clayson, we have the knowledge and ability to start creating some of these solutions for the broadcast industry. And we would love to know more about what is your problem. What is the problem that you don't have a solution out there for, that maybe we could build one for you to do that kind of thing. So you tell us what it needs to be. In the meantime, if you want more information about the Babelfish line, if you go to optimizedmedia.net, you will find a link on there up the top of the page that says Babelfish, and it'll show you information about each of the different devices. And you can also check these all out at BGS, and they are our current distributor for all of these things. So talk to the folks at BGS, and they can get you set up from there.
That's pretty convenient, and I will be sure to have a link in the show notes, but indeed, optimizedmedia.net, and click on Babelfish. I've gone to that page myself, and we'll have that link in the show notes. And it's a very readable page, very informative.
Good.
Alex,
Thank you.
What you got for us for a final tip?
I'm going to steal a few taglines from some old advertisements for those of us in the industry. One is, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Anybody name the company? Come on now. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Farmers Insurance.
Very good. Yep. So we go into these nightmares of 66 blocks and 50 pair cable, and and we find the 110 volts on the blocks. Things that are really, really bad to do, right? We're used to that. That's why this exists. This is the genesis of that. Being elbows deep in 50 pair wiring underneath a console that hasn't been cleaned in 30 years. That's why this exists. So to steal the next one from a marketing department, think different. Go into it with an open mind. Which company was that, Jim? Come on.
IBM?
Kirk? Think different?
I don't know.
Apple.
Apple, of course. Think different. Okay.
Apple. Okay.
Yeah.
So, think different. Go in with an open mind. Like I said, home assistant. The only difference between home and transmitter site is a word or two.
That's a good point.
Studio assistant. It's just automation software. This is no different than your Burke or Davicom or any other remote control system. It's just a little bit more user friendly because it's made for home users. But it's still very, very powerful. I can do things like Node-RED, which is a JavaScript programming language with it's graphical. So, text string comes from here, then do this to text string, spit it out here. Or button push here goes over here, press play on this here. If you're familiar with Pathfinder logic flows, it's that for programmers and logic of pushing buttons. So you can do any type of data manipulation with something like Node-RED. So again, think different. Go in with an open mind. Don't think that just because this is the way we've always done it is the way you have to do it.
Right. Love it. All right. Great advice. Thank you so much, Jim Gray, Alex Hartman. You're so well prepared, and I love the lengthy and accurate descriptions that we got of Babelfish today and all the things you can do with it. Really appreciate your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
So I can
And
put you
big
down for
thanks
about 10
to-
minutes, right? Your videos?
I could use them here. Actually, we haven't finished wiring this place up yet. We should talk because it may be January before we wire all the satellite receivers.
There you go.
Yeah.
I know a guy.
Yeah.
I'll
be in touch. I really will. Okay. Big thanks to Suncast. Done a great job of switching today's show. Really appreciate you, Suncast. Just thanks for a very professional job and making us look good. I'm Kirk Harnack. You've been watching This Week in Radio Tech. Be sure, hey, if you find us on social media, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook, give us a like and whatever, ring the bell for notifications, tell your friends and all that. It would really help us to get our show out and get you reminded that we're on every Thursday. And if you can't watch it live, that's okay. It's all the shows are recorded and they're all available on YouTube, and you'll find a whole lot of them on Facebook, via YouTube. So check it out. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week, and we're going to be hopefully coming to you from the peak of Mount Haleakala here on Maui at the 10,200 foot level transmitter building. See how it goes. See you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.